1 in every 10 men in the legion was sentenced to death. The horrifying part? Their executioners were not the enemy. They were the 9 soldiers who had to kill the man they called a brother. The legionary's breath comes in ragged gasps. The metallic tang of blood, his, and the enemy's fills his nostrils. Around him, the battlefield is a chaotic mosaic of discarded shields, broken spears, and the still, silent forms of fallen men. His muscles scream in protest, his ears ring with the phantom echoes of battle cries, but he is alive. The enemy has broken. They have survived. A wave of grim relief washes over him and the men of his cohort. They stood their ground. They held the line. But as the exhausted soldiers begin to regroup, a different sound cuts through the air. Not the cheer of victory, but the sharp, authoritative call of a centurion's horn. An order ripples down the ranks, cold and sharp. Assemble by cohort. Drop your arms. Confusion turns to dread. There is no celebration. There are no medics tending to the wounded. Instead, high-ranking officers approach with grim faces, carrying urns filled with small, marked stones. The relief of moments ago evaporates, replaced by a chilling, unbelievable realization. The enemy may have fled the field, but the dying is not over. The greatest threat to their lives is not a barbarian's axe, but the very institution they have sworn to die for. This is the story of decimation, the darkest punishment in the Roman military, and the brutal logic behind forcing soldiers to become the executioners of their own comrades. To understand why a Roman commander would force his men into this horrifying lottery of death, one must first understand the brutal logic of the Roman war machine. The Roman Republic, and later the Empire, was not built on superior technology or overwhelming numbers alone. It was built on a foundation of absolute, unshakable discipline. This concept, known as disciplina, was the lifeblood of the legions. It was the invisible force that held the line against a Celtic charge and the unwavering resolve that marched men for weeks through hostile territory. The legionary was more than a soldier. He was a cog in a machine of conquest, and the machine could not tolerate any broken parts. The world in which this machine operated was one of constant, existential threat. The players were ambitious generals like Marcus Licinius Crassus, whose political careers and personal honor were tied directly to their military victories. The conflict was the relentless expansion and defense of Roman territory against tribes and empires that saw Rome as a mortal enemy. The atmosphere within the legions was a potent mix of brotherhood and fear. A soldier fought for the man standing next to him, but he was also deeply aware of the brutal consequences of failure. The stakes were absolute. For the individual soldier, the cost of cowardice wasn't just death, it was ignominia, a public disgrace that would taint his family's name for generations. For Rome, the stakes were the survival of the Republic itself. A single legion breaking in battle could lead to a catastrophic defeat, the loss of a province, and the emboldening of enemies on every border. The army was the skeleton that held the entire body of Rome upright. And in 71 BC, that skeleton was beginning to crack. A gladiator named Spartacus had ignited a slave rebellion that swelled into a massive army, humiliating and defeating trained Roman legions time and again. The crisis fell to Crassus to solve. When his legions met the rebels and one of them broke and fled the field in panic, he knew that a simple punishment would not suffice. He needed to restore the iron core of disciplina with an act of terror so profound it would be remembered for centuries. The fuse was lit the moment he gave the order to revive a punishment of ancient, horrifying legend: decimation. The air grows thick, with a dread far colder than the sweat of battle. The command ripples through the exhausted ranks, and the legionaries are forcibly divided, not by their loyalty, not by their rank, but by the cold, impartial mathematics of punishment. They are split into groups of 10, the contubernium, the smallest unit of the legion, men who share a tent, a fire, their fears. A bond of brotherhood forged in hardship is about to become an instrument of terror. An officer approaches each group, his face a mask of grim duty. He carries a small leather pouch or a clay urn. Inside, 10 stones. 9 are white. 1 is black. This is the lottery. There is no appeal, no trial, only the chilling randomness of fate. A soldier, his hand still trembling from the weight of his shield, reaches into the urn, his fingers close around a smooth, cool stone. He pulls it out. White. A collective, silent exhalation of breath from his 9 comrades. He is safe. The next man steps forward. His hand hesitates for a moment over the mouth of the urn. He draws. White. The tension ratchets higher. With every white stone drawn, the odds for the remaining men grow shorter. It is a slow, agonizing process. For a fleeting moment, there is a glimmer of impossible hope, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, the black stone isn't in this urn, that there has been a mistake, that they will be spared. That hope shatters. A young legionary, barely old enough to grow a beard, pulls his hand from the pouch. He opens his palm. Resting there, stark and absolute against his skin, is the black stone. A gasp ripples through the small group. The man's face drains of color. The relief on the faces of the other 9 instantly curdles into shock, then horror. They are spared death, but they are not spared the ordeal. The most terrible part of the ritual is yet to come. The centurion's voice cuts through their disbelief, cold and devoid of pity. He issues the final order, and with it, the true, soul-crushing nature of the punishment is revealed. The 9 men who drew the white stones are not just survivors. They are now the executioners. They are commanded to pick up the fustuarium, a heavy wooden cudgel, the same tool used to punish petty camp infractions like falling asleep on watch. This simple instrument of discipline is now to become a weapon of murder turned against one of their own. This is the moment the true horror of decimation is seared into the minds of all who witness it. It is a devastating violation of the legionary's deepest code, the promise to protect the man to your left and the man to your right. Crassus is not just killing one man, he is forcing 9 others to kill a piece of themselves, to sever the bonds of brotherhood that make a legion strong. The choice is fatal. Carry out the sentence, or be cut down alongside their condemned friend for insubordination. There is no escape. The point of no return has been crossed. The long walk is agonizingly short. The condemned man is not led to a block or a gallows. He is simply brought to the center of a space cleared by his comrades. He is stripped of his legionary armor, each piece removed with chilling ceremony. His helmet, his breastplate, his sword, the symbols of his honor, and his service are cast aside. He now stands exposed and alone. The 9 chosen men form a brutal circle around him, a gauntlet of familiar faces now twisted by a terrible duty. The rest of the legion is forced to assemble, to watch, to bear witness. The silence is absolute, heavier than any shield. All that can be heard is the ragged breathing of the men and the shuffling of feet on the hard-packed earth. The command is given. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then, the first man lunges forward. The sound of wood hitting flesh is sickeningly dull, followed by a grunt of pain. It is not a clean, swift execution. It is a clumsy, frantic, and brutal beating. These are not executioners. They are soldiers, and the act is a horrifying perversion of their training. They strike with clubs and stones, their faces a mask of desperation, trying to finish the grim task as quickly as possible. The crowd of soldiers watches in stony silence, their faces pale. Some turn away, unable to stomach the sight. Others force themselves to look, their eyes burning the image into their memory, just as their commander intends. The ordeal ends. The 9 men step back, breathing heavily, their clubs hanging limply in their hands. On the ground lies the body of their brother in arms, a life extinguished not by an enemy's sword, but by the hands of his friends. The silence that follows is profound. It is the silence of shame, of fear, and of a lesson brutally learned. The legion stands, not as a victorious army, but as a group of shamed and broken men. Crassus's message has been delivered in blood. The discipline of the legion has been restored, but its spirit has been scarred forever. As the last sounds of the brutal execution fade, there is no relief for the survivors. The horror is not over. The 9 executioners and the rest of the cohort are immediately branded with disgrace. They are fed rations of barley instead of wheat, a diet fit for livestock, not Roman soldiers. More perilously, they are ordered to pitch their tents outside the safety of the fortified camp walls, left exposed to the elements and any potential enemy raids. The message is clear. They are tainted, and their lives are now worth less than those of their comrades. In the immediate aftermath, Crassus achieved his goal. The terror of decimation burned away the legion's cowardice, replacing it with a fear far greater than any enemy. His army, now brutally disciplined, went on to crush the Spartacus rebellion, but the echo of those cudgels striking flesh rippled far beyond that single campaign. Decimation became an infamous legend within the Roman military, a punishment of last resort, so extreme that its use was incredibly rare. Commanders knew they risked turning their own men against them, potentially sparking a full-blown mutiny. Yet, the threat of it lingered for centuries. A ghost story used to remind legions of the ultimate price of failure. The act solidified a core tenet of Roman military philosophy. The individual soldier was utterly expendable for the good of the larger state. The legion was a machine, and any part, no matter how small, could be sacrificed to ensure the machine kept running. The story, however, does not end in the ruins of the Roman Empire. Its ghost is alive and well, hiding in plain sight within the English language itself. Every time a person says a sports team was decimated by injuries, or a town was decimated by a storm, they are unknowingly invoking this ancient horror. The word decimate comes directly from the Latin decimare, literally, to remove a tenth. The true, brutal meaning of the word has been softened over time, but its origin is locked into that one specific, horrific act. The lottery of death, the black stone, and the 9 soldiers forced to murder their friend. The punishment is gone, but its name remains, a permanent linguistic scar left by one of history's darkest forms of discipline. The Roman commanders who ordered decimation believed they were forging an unbreakable army. They made a cold, brutal calculation: that the fear of your own leaders must always be greater than the fear of the enemy. It is a chilling philosophy, one that forces a man to weigh his own life against the life of his friend, and bets that terror will always be a stronger bond than brotherhood. It begs a dark question. Does an act of such profound cruelty create discipline, or does it simply create broken men, forever haunted by the ghost of the friend they were forced to kill? Was decimation a necessary evil required to hold a fragile empire together, or was it an unforgivable act of tyranny? We want to know what you think. Leave your verdict in the comments below. History is filled with these terrifying calculations, where the line between order and atrocity becomes razor thin. If you have a passion for uncovering the brutal logic behind the past's darkest chapters, subscribe and join us for the next descent into dark history.